Welcome, everybody, and happy Friday. I hope you all had a good week and are going into a weekend where you don't have to work. And for those of you that do have to work, I'm sorry to hear that. But I also hope you're having a great week. And welcome to the Just Jump In live stream. And today I thought we would do something a little different. And that not super different. I love my show and tells, and you all know that I've been working with a 3D printer, and so just wanted to show you some of the stuff I'm working on. Some that I'm actually trying to do model railroading stuff. Some that's just I'm just trying to practice and be better at 3D printing. So let's check out who's here. And if you are here lurking in the background, just have a quick say hi in the chat. And also let me know that I'm not talking to myself and that you can hear me. And I see that Brad from Willow Creek is first and gets the virtual cookie. And Tim, hello, welcome. Oh, and there's my mom. Hi, Mom, checking in between hockey periods. Nice to see you in here for 12 minutes or however long the intermission is. Hopefully the Rangers are doing well. So, as I said, what I wanted to do is just kind of certainly talk about the model railroading piece for sure and see where I've gotten on the flat car, which I am trying to finish up. And as you can hear, I'm not quite finished. And it seems like I keep taking a step back as I step forward. And we'll talk about that. But to start with, you see my new little sign that I was attempting to do multicolor printing with some black and white that I had. I put together another sign that wasn't working as well, and so the slicer for the bamboo printers has an option right in there where you can do some words and lettering right in the slicer. You don't have to create them outside of that, and so that was my first little one that I can have something here instead of this green mat that doesn't look like it's been used enough. So first of all, I just want to throw this out there. I got to the mailbox. Our mailbox is not right at our house. We have to go a little ways, and it's amongst a set of mailboxes in our townhome complex. So I'm not sure when this came, but let's see if I can. But the 2025 NMRA calendar came out. Some fantastic photography in here, and this is a kind of a summary of the pictures that are in here. There is a mix of some modern stuff, which is nice to see. I'm much more into modern modeling. Still, there's a lack of passenger stuff on here. I'd love to see more passenger photos. There's lots of great modelers out there in the NMRA and outside of the NMRA that do passenger stuff. So I'd like to see that. And then maybe one day when I actually move forward and get somewhere with my passenger modeling, maybe I can get into the calendar. But that came out. So if you haven't been to your mailbox and you're an NMRA member, it's sitting out there for you. So question is, do I want to talk about my frustrations first? I'm not going to do that first. I'll talk about that on the back end. I talked about dipping into the blue tub, sort of. So I did a show a while back featuring my blue tub contents, and one of those contents was actually a Model Railroader magazine idea. and um, so I've been wanting to set out to create what was in the magazine. So we'll certainly take a look at that here soon. Uh, so, I showed you some other tools. So the latest tool I printed is this. I wanted to um, sanding sticks in the hobby shop are kind of on the expensive side, and I haven't truly used them, so I don't know how long they last. And um, hey, Gopher Girl, welcome in, Mom. I got something, but I wasn't allowed to open it. Gopher Girl said no, I couldn't open it. I said, "What if it's got my birthday gift in it?" And she reminded me that I got your birthday gift. Uh, so I assume I got it. I assume that's what it is, but I couldn't open it to see. Um, anyway, so um, for getting into tight places like windows and things. So, for instance, something like in here and here or here, kind of trying to get sandpaper in there is a little difficult. So, I've cut cuticles, like let's see here, sanding, like cuticle sticks, I think is what you call them. I'm gonna drop everything, but what I've done for these, when it's really small like this, or when I was working on N scale, I would just cut these down, and so that they fit in, and use that. But because I had a hard time spending the money on the sanding sticks, but they're solid. They're plastic, but they're solid, and they're rough around the edges. They're not like sandpaper on them. But I wanted to see if there was a 3D, if there were 3D printed ones, and there weren't exactly, but I did. This is a little bit too big, but I did find this. Um, and it's a little hard to see in the camera because it's very blue. But simply, it's two pieces. It's this piece here, well, four pieces, then this piece here holding the sanding paper in, and then two screws on here. And this is a nice size for a lot of the sanding jobs that we have to do in model railroading. It's not a bad size at all. It's not quite the sanding sticks, but um, it's a nice alternative. And once you're using the filament that you buy for around $20, you buy a kilogram of filament, it really breaks down into a small amount. So you're really saving a lot of money on something like this, and having some leverage and something. I'd love this to have a way to get this to stay tight against here when I'm not pressing on it. But other than that, it works fine. It works great. Nice little tool. Um, so and no, I didn't design this. Somebody else designed it, and I just printed it. Well, Gopher Girl, I did see that. You didn't have to say that, because she just above you in the comments said she that you're right. So I get it. Um, Speaking of which, I've printed a lot of things for Gopher Girl. I think a lot more for her than for me. And for example, this one is still in parts. It still needs some work on it. but it's basically a Lego mega minifig that was just a minifig that was turned into, believe it or not, a toilet paper dispenser. So I still have to get this together, do a little painting on here because I didn't have the right coloring at the time for this piece in here. But Gopher Girl saw that and she insisted that she had to have this for her toilet paper, and so there you go. So that was a print I did, but again, it's all in parts and everything. It has lots of dog hair on it, so I'll have to get this together, and then we'll have to get this up in the bathroom. But for a filament printer with all the lines and everything, this is a pretty neat looking print and a pretty nice looking print here. So I could print another one of these out and we could have lightsaber fights with toilet paper dispensers. And I looked and they didn't have a Luke Skywalker one, but this was actually a figure that was made and then it was modified to be a toilet paper dispenser. So that was the Yeehaw big build. Okay. And then, so from a scale modeling standpoint, and from a nostalgia standpoint, I printed this out, and so it's also not quite finished. But bear with me for a second. We'll put this together. This is supposed to be a parking lot. And you actually can print the lines and the bumpers for the cars. And this is actually in S scale, or 1/64th. So it's not really my scale, but I really want, for the nostalgia piece, I really wanted to print this out. And so it kind of stands up like this. Those aren't in yet. Could print out. It came with a picture you could use of the interior of a Blockbuster. I haven't scaled it correctly yet, but so I went and put this together. I printed this out. Only there are two pieces. So this sign and this sign had multicolor, so that was another thing I wanted to, because of the printer's ability to do multicolor, like in this guy. I wanted to try that, so pretty nostalgic thing. And so this is a cool build, but I'm gonna have to give this away to some of our S scalers. I don't know, somebody's gonna have to, it's gonna have to be semi-modern, 80s, 90s. Their layout. I don't think they'll want this on a 50s layout or earlier or anything like that. But a really neat print. And I glued the sidewalk on. This actually was slotted, but I glued that on. Glued the Blockbuster signs on as well after they were printed. So a really neat little build there from the model railroading standpoint. And even before I got into model railroading, I was always looking for stuff, or I should say, way before I got into 3D printing, I was looking for stuff, and there was a gentleman who prints stuff and gives it away for free on a couple of the sites. and he was doing like the Merchants Row type buildings. So I got one last piece to print on that, but I decided to try printing this. And forgive me because I was working on the blue that I had at the time. Let's see if we can get in here a little bit tighter. So look at some of the detail there. So a 3 building set. So I think the Merchants Row is one from Walters, are like 5 buildings, but nevertheless, this is one of his attempts. I think this is to him as building 6, 7, and 8 that he designed. So he designed all of it, and so there was lots to print. So when I got smart and I got the red that I had for brick, here's like a side. I think what you'll say if you're looking real close and not relying on the 3D rule, you'll say, "Oh, the bricks are a little too far apart." But I think this is pretty darn good for a plastic building 3D print. And so he printed the windows and doors as well, or he designed the windows and doors as well to fit, to slot in like that. And then he did some detail pieces, for instance, like downspouts for the buildings. And he also has a base to glue it to. So with the sidewalk, and I get that a red sidewalk's not the way to go, but the lucky thing is these are paintable pieces, of course. Here's the back as well. And what's nice about these are they've been measured and slotted, so that, and these have, like, these sides have small ridges to slot in, and they slot right in. So really nice setup that way, to really line them up. So really nice builds. And then the kicker, I think, to it, or the neat thing to it, is I have some clear filament, but he designed the windows to go in. Now, with 3D printing, with these being thick, they have what they call infill, so keeps the structure, and so that will fit in there. So you won't really see in, but it'll simulate the windows just fine. And if I didn't want to use these, at all, I don't have to. I can certainly use acetate or other window material if I really wanted to as well. But I also wanted to print with the clear to see what that was like. I did print one other printer upgrade, a large printer upgrade. And again, as you print layers, it's not as clear, but it is what it is there. And so at some point I'll get this together, and just like things that happen with injection molding and things like that, issues happen. And so you could see this is kind of muddled up right up in the corner there, if you were to compare the corners on here. And then if you look on the back end, you can see it's kind of bent up and ragged. Again, with the 3-foot rule, with a building like this is not a building I would want to feature, because I would want to feature my, nicer craftsman type kits or something I scratch built than this. But this would be a perfectly fine background building, or a building 3 feet away, and then that doesn't bother me at all. It bothers me a little. I painted this, or I printed it in blue, and then was like, well, why didn't you print it in red? But I can paint all this and paint them different colors and things like that. So he's got a number of buildings, and he's had them for years. Out on, I think he's on Thingiverse or Printables or one of those or multiples of those. And right now I am printing it'll take a couple hours, but I'm printing the roof as the last piece of this, and then I can put this together. And this is something I can put on my modules to give it some scenery. So more tools. So we all know these kind of bins that slide out. They have a lip here and a pull here. Oftentimes I find I move these around wherever I am, and then they're not all together with the holder for these. And I thought, is there, if I ever lose these, do I have to buy new ones? And so I have a design here from somebody who actually, these are modifiable, easily modifiable, and I have approximately the same size. I could print these in clear. It's thin enough that you might be able to see through them. I would have to see if I can modify this further if I wanted the lip to put this in the drawers and up here, the extended lip up here. But just an attempt to see if I can have a storage solution if I'm ever running out of storage, and I don't have to go pay a retail price for the storage when I can create the storage myself at this point. So that was just an attempt that I did with that. And so that's some of my 3D printing journey so far. Let's see if what's going on in the chat. It's pretty quiet in the chat tonight. It's a quiet Friday night for folks. I know for sports fans, it's bowl season for college football, including the playoffs that have started, and so I'm sure Gopher Girls watching that in the background tonight. So that, again, that's some of the things I've been working on in the background of the model railroading piece. I don't remember if I had mentioned this on the previous live stream, but I did find some track that's curved that will work with this straight track for the dollhouse miniature table. The only problem is this is still too wide of track, but I can probably simulate something and then with scenery cover up the edge of it, so it just looks like it's going into something and out of something on the other end. But this is still too wide for the table itself. And not sure if I showed you this too, but for interest, I printed out a little girder bridge that would fit the track there. It's a Z-scale girder bridge. So I did work on that piece as well. And looking for, I wanted to have like a child and a parent as part of this, I guess you would call it diorama, or this train table scene. But it's hard to get a doll that kind of fits the bill for it. And hey, Mystic, welcome. Nice to see you in here. I hope your weekend has started off well. And so we did some looking around and found one doll for like $10. That's a child that'll be the right size, we think, for it. There's one other place that for like $31 is a father, mother, and two children. We'll see how this one works out, and before we look at getting that. So Mystic, this if you're referring to this is Z scale. And I don't know if you were on previous live streams, but my mother is a deals in fine dollhouse miniatures. Not anything I'm doing here, but we're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars for one of a kind pieces. But I had always had this idea for forever. My first idea was having like a large scale box car or something that was open, and have a kid playing with a train on a track that you could see in the box car. But as time went on, I didn't really pursue any of that. And so then conversation came up in the chat, and I went ahead and I designed a 4x8 train table, and so that's really what it got started. So this is the train table, or this was the second one or third one I printed out, including, and I think this is maybe a little small, but that's part of why I want to get the doll. Is this is a Lionel transformer that I modeled in 3D print, and the table is also 3D printed. And so here is the track on here, bridge. So, Lionel is oversized anyway, and always looked oversized. So the scaling it down, I got down to where I could do Z scale stuff, but I wasn't going to buy Z scale stuff because that is not cheap stuff. Z scale, it's pretty expensive. But this is what I'm talking about. This is still a little big, so we'll have to do something to make it work. But yeah, that's how this came about. And so it's dollhouse miniature size, which is 1 to 12 or 1 to 24. And so what was fitting on here and it's kind of toy-like, but what was fitting on here was these little trains. Now these have wheels on them. These aren't the wheels, but they, I would glue them down. These would be static. I personally don't like steam, and so I wouldn't have this, and this is too toy-like to me, but it might work that way. And I've been trying to design my own to have a more passenger style car and stuff, but I'm probably going to stick with this model that I found on here to try and finish this out. But that's where it came from, and that's why I'm working on it. It's kind of a side project to help me get through the frustrating times when I'm trying to finish up the actual model railroading that I'm doing, and may not be going so well. Also, not sure if you're on. So I recently bought a 3, and you may have seen me ask questions in chats too on some of the live streams the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But I sold off all my N scale stuff, and I'm focused on HO and what I'm trying to do here and show on live stream and show my progress, which is very slow, is towards the NMRA's Master Model Railroader program, towards that designation. And so it's an HO scale now that I'm working. So I sold off all my N scale stuff to a local hobby shop, and use that money and some other savings, and bought a 3D printer so that I could print some of the things that maybe I'm not modeling well with. As long as I can design them and they're my design, then they're acceptable from an achievement program standpoint. So thank you, Mystic. I appreciate that. So yeah, if we all had Rod Stewart's money, we'd all have empires like his, and in multiple scales. It's amazing that Z scale is as expensive as it is. You would think it's smaller, there's less material and things, but the stuff that's come out for Z scale runs well, and like the engines and things, and the stuff just looks phenomenal, and so of course it's pretty expensive, but you certainly you could have several empires if you were doing it that way. So let's talk about this guy. So here is the flat car that I continue to toil with. So last time we talked, a couple things were coming up. One was that this was stripped over here, and so when I'd screw this in, it didn't really screw in. So when I'd lift it off the track, the wheel set would stay there. So I tried a couple things to fill that in. What I was going to do is I was going to replace this, but with some of your encouragement, I did fill this in, and I've made sure to let it dry, so that I can sand it down flat, and then drill into it. But I basically used some small styrene rod and just filled this with because I have the thin cement. So this is where a thicker cement might have been nice, but I have the, to me, extra thin. So I was just dumping the glue in there and the pieces in there to get them to stay. And then next thing we'll do, and I can even do it tonight, is sand that down and see if we can get the wheel set to stay. Now, with handling the car with small parts and everything, not sure if you can see, but I'm sure you can see the white there. Let's see if we can focus in on it. But the stirrup is missing, and this one is off a bit. You can see that is because that front piece is not glued on. But that one went flying off when I was handling it, and I'm not sure. I thought I had it. If I don't have it, I'm going to have to make a new one. So there was that, and then a couple of other pieces. They have you put it on earlier, but the brake wheel was up here. Well, it doesn't help if I'm not showing you, but this is where the support was put in for the brake wheel rod, and then on the bottom was the base of the brake wheel rod, and then with handling again, that's gone, and I have it in here. I have my spares, and I'll be able to pull it out and get, but I want to do that last because I don't want to have to glue it on a third or fourth time. And then the other detail that's part of this kit, or part of the scratch build, is on the ends is a coupler bar. So there's a piece in here that you would anchor it to, and then you then drill a hole and anchor it in here with two little pieces. And I made it too big. Let's see if it's in here, if it didn't go flying, which it may have. So let's see if you can see this. Not when I drop it, of course. But you can see that it would be over here, and it's too long to this little piece here. So I've got to make shorter ones or shorten these up. And I started with the other one, and I shortened that one up, and it looks okay. But I'm having trouble keeping it glued in. So these little things are getting frustrating for me. And so I'm glad I have these other things to that are model railroading related, and what I want to do with them is model railroading related. So I'm glad I have that to distract me a little bit, because when I get frustrated, it's very easy for me to put stuff down and not work on them. And I want to get this done. Granted, I have until March, and when I say I have until March, is I can take forever if I want to do it. But we have an event in the Twin Cities division called the Modelers Retreat, and it's a modified version of an RPM. What we're doing there is we're going to have the availability of some MMRs from our division who are going to evaluate cars and structures and evaluate whatever needs evaluating. And so I want to bring this, and I'm hoping to have the cab car, which is what I started with, for evaluation. So it's frustrating when these things aren't working out, and I'm getting somewhere, and I've gotten this close to being done, and I'm running into these things, and I have a tendency to occupy my time and avoid. And I'm trying not to do that because I want to get this done. So, and Mystic, the danger for me is it's almost like I have kind of like a ADHD type of thing with model railroading. Is I want to try everything. I don't care if I don't stick with some things. But now that I'm trying to do the Master Model Railroad designation, to me, it's important to be able to stick with it. And I know it's a long road, and I know that it takes many years for people. But rational, irrational, doesn't matter. I have this thing where, it freaks me out that, at my age, and for the hobby, I would think I'm pretty young at 52. But I don't want to sit there and say I have plenty of time. I have plenty of time, and then the time comes and I have no more time. So, that's in the back of my mind. So I'm really pushing hard to keep moving with this. And to your point, Mystic, one of the things I'm not skillful at is kind of having a bunch of projects, because to be honest, I could be working on everything. I could be working on electrical. I could be working on the track plan. I could be working on structures, and the cars and the motive power. I could be working on those things all at once, just moving from different thing. If I'm waiting for, let's say, this piece to dry and dry solid, I want to wait 24 hours before I manipulate it or anything. Well, in that 24 hours, I I could be doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And so I give myself a pass when I'm practicing on stuff on the 3D printer. Let me pull out the station. I think this is the second version of the station that I was working on. And it's the so this is the feature station, which is New Brunswick Station, that's the one I grew up with in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And so this is styrene on the inside, flat solid styrene on the inside, brick styrene on the outside, and a lot of cutting of windows and doors. And again, this is the second version. I have back here somewhere. Of course, it ran away while I'm trying to reach for it. Not that it has legs or anything. But one of the things, too, with this is I think I bit off way more than I can chew. Hey, Heath, welcome. Human City Junction is in the house. Nice to have you in here. Well, technically, Heath, I'm not on video. This is, well, my hands are. But yeah, times have changed. And nice to see, have time to come in and see what I'm doing. So with the New Brunswick Station, it's so ornate. It was like the wrong scratch build to kind of start with this, I think. And down to they have it's like a brick face. So it's not real brick. And so the designs are integrated in, and they're, like these corner designs that I have to cut out and do, and round the corners and everything. I have a bunch of these that I've been cutting out. These are all the wrong sizes, I think, but a design like that would be around the corner, and I was working on all these things. The one thing I'm hopeful with the 3D printing is some of the more ornate stuff that I'm not able to do freehand, that I'm hoping I'm able to design it in a CAD program. And I'll tell you here, let's see here. Okay, so I didn't do it on here, but there's and I should bring up a picture, but there's some ornate pieces to it. Like there's some the bottom of these like windows, some of them have like layers of this brick face in a very ornate way. There's no way I've tried to, on the first version, I tried to do some layers where I put some of this brick behind it and do the design, and it was a terrible disaster. Let me see if I can find some pictures of what I'm talking about. That would be way more helpful. So let's see here. Bear with me for just a second. See if I can. I really should pull up. Let's see if I can. Let's not do that one. Sorry about that. Just kind of want to show you what I'm looking at. All right, let's see if we can share this real quick here. And all right. So interesting. Okay. So this is kind of the in here is kind of the ornate. There's all kinds of ornate pieces over this whole thing. This is built in right around the turn of the 20th century, so 1900, late 1800s to 1890s to I think it was finished in 1904 or something like that. And so it's kept its original look, but with it being this ornate, it's really hard to layer styrene to do that. So I'm hoping I'm able to come up with a way to handle something like that. But designing in 3D CAD and designing in general is not an easy art or technique either. So thank you, Mystic. I appreciate it. That was a lot of improvements from the first one. I'll tell you that. So but going back to the point you're making, Mystic, while I'm waiting for this thing to, this little part to dry before I sand it down, there's no reason I couldn't take a stab at, working on that station. And so that's the piece I have to get better at. And I don't think I'll stress out about the time thing as much. So going back, so my other little show and tell, when I talked about in a previous, I talked about you're having the blue tub of stuff that just piles up. And so what I included in there were 2 magazine articles from Model Railroader because they're things I wanted to try to build. So the one of them was this, and this was exhaust fans. The author and the builder is Bruce Dombey, and he's an O scale modeler. And this is from September of 2010. So for all the things people say about the magazine and how it's been over the years, there's still always articles in there that are inspiring to me and that I want to try. And once I started really working with styrene and scratch building stuff, this then didn't seem to be far-fetched. But one of my worst things is measurements and measuring stuff, and then having to figure out if he's doing this in O scale, can I find the styrene that will make this work? And he did it in he did in 4 different depths, and I was going to try 2 of them. And you can see here what he has, how he has it on his layout, which it looks really nice. Now, I'm used to seeing these fans with the outer ring being kind of bent or kind of a rounded angle, but this is a really good representation of it. So I wanted to see if I could set out to build this in using a CAD program, and I'll show you what I did. Let's see if it, give me a sec here to make it. So I designed this for it to be the 9-inch version, 9-inch deep version. And it looks to me to be pretty similar. It looks like I can do a little something with it. So I was excited that, so I actually was going to do this a long time ago, but I waited, understanding that I was going to end up with a 3D printer. Now, the problem I have and is it's not coming out like you see on the screen. And let's just do this. We're gonna export this. We'll do it as a step. And then once it sets up, what I'm doing is I'm opening it in the slicer to show you how it's going to print and the trouble I'm having. And if any of you are 3D printers and can understand this, I have yet to be able to fix this or figure it out, how to fix it, but it's a major problem. So basically this is a bunch of parts. So you have the flat base part, you have the nut bolt washers are a separate part. You have this outer ring, which is actually not just a ring, it has a base to it and everything. It's basically a hollowed out circle. And then it has this inner piece and then a cap. And so those are all put together. And then let's see if we can just for see here, bear with me, some objects. Okay, so we're gonna flip this over, and then I'm gonna we'll share this again here. Let's move that. Then we're gonna go here. We're going to screen. We're going to then maybe what's going on here. It doesn't really want to. Okay, so we're going to do this. Thank you for bearing with me as I do this. So this is a slicer program. And so here it is. This is the model, ready to go, it looks like. Of course, this is in red. This is the color that it's associating with, and I would change those things up, of course, before printing. But one of the things you do is you slice it to make it printable. Now, what's weird about this thing is, so first of all, all the stuff that's in blue is just support for the model, and the model's in the middle here. You do see the round shell, but you don't see the outside of it. And when we're previewing this, what's really neat, if I can get rid of some of this, put this over for a second here. So I can pull down the layers, and this is the layers of the printing. and it comes down to the base, builds it up. Then you kind of see it's going to build that outer shell, and it's building the inner shell. It never builds the outer shell. And so I printed it just to see if I was kind of seeing things, but I'm not. If I move this, you can you can barely see it, but it's showing you this shell like it's invisible. I have yet to figure it out. I've looked in all the forums, and I'll have to reach out to somebody like Thomas Grassi, who's been working with the A1, has done a bunch of printing himself, um, and some other people. Hey, good night, Mystic. It was nice to have you in here. Appreciate it. Um, so I've been struggling with this one too. This is one I was really excited to be able to build and to see that I have a product, in the CAD program, and for it not to come out has been frustrating. So I'll continue to work on that. But that's one of the things I was working on this week, and focusing on um, while working on the car. So I'm working on that multitasking piece with the model railroading, but not well, I guess. So got a little frustrated with that. So I'm ending the week frustrated, but I have Christmas week off. So my week off has basically started. And so I'm pushing myself to make sure that I don't wake up in the morning and be like, I don't want to tackle this. I really want to tackle this. I would like to get this done this week. That would be really nice to be just done with it and put it aside. So that's going to take fixing this. Also, I forgot to mention a couple of these popped off, so I have to fix that, which also means some painting on there. And I think there's one that fully popped off of here that I got to do. Then trying to figure out I might modify it and make it easier on myself with the coupler bars. If I can't get them to stay and get them the right size, I might just do something that represents a coupler bar and is not necessarily a coupler bar. Um, and then and then I've got to get another stirrup on here, and then finish getting the brake wheel back on this end, and then I've got to call it done and leave it alone till March when it gets evaluated, uh, and move on. So I am waiting to see what family has got me. I've given them my list. It's all model railroading and 3D printing stuff. Um, and whatever I don't get, I have a little bit of a reserve of cash, where I can get the things I need. I'll be looking to finish up the cab car. I'll be looking for a decoder for that, and then they'll finish up the lighting on that, um, and then I'll have to detail the shell of it and get windows in it, and then that will be done. And I certainly think I'll be able to do that by March. So that was a long-winded way of showing you all the things that I've been working on over the last week. And so I'm curious what other people are working on. I know Heath's been working on his Riverside Junction layout, and he's got an operating session, I believe, tomorrow. Is that, if you're still in here, Heath, is that correct? I think you were talking about that on your live stream this week. And curious what everybody else is working on. Been following Brad and his work on his industrial modules, and he's been doing a lot of landscaping, scenery type stuff. And Tim, if you're still in here, can you remind me what you're working on? So, and might as well try out while we're all here. Of course, I threw it somewhere now. Oh, Dan, what are you doing with yourself here? What did you do with it? Oh, it's over here. So I'm going to try. Now, this is, I have a pretty rough sandpaper in here, so I'm going to be really gentle with this and see if I can get this sanded down. See what, again, what folks are doing in the chat. Oh, a little bit more here. A little bit more. A little bit more. Let's see. It's not quite completely flat here. So that's where we want to get it to, is we want to get this flat. So if we get some paint off, we know we're getting flat. There, it's getting there. Now, if I can find the right size drill, we can see if we can not make a disaster out of this one again. And where are my little guys here? Oh. Either these wheels roll really well, or I have a slanted desk, because they want to roll right off. So it's big. Let's see here. So, all right. Let's see. So, no new comments. I hope I didn't put everybody to sleep tonight, but can understand it's a long week. Let's see here. What's everybody's is folks gonna folks with their families this week, traveling maybe, or staying at home, hiding from the family? So we're staying home, but I'm sure we'll connect with family Christmas Day and say hi to folks virtually. Yep, and so I've been enjoying your videos, Brad. They've been very informative, and I've enjoyed your comments in the streams here. Have heated, you know, this car is red because of you. This is I took your advice and tried the Tamiya paint. So this is, I think, like XF7 red acrylic paint, and it looks really nice. I have to get it. I have to get it faded a bit more with the white. Have it a little more off color than it is, but it's otherwise um, your advice is what got me to this point. See, and that's the for me, I could model anytime. I could be indoors and be okay with it. But I do like to get outside every once in a while. That would be nice. Um, but it wouldn't stop me from model railroading. And we're really getting into the meat of our winter here. We had our first real snowstorm of the season. I think they said we had about um, um, what was it? 3 inches before this latest snowfall, and we just had a snowfall yesterday that was anywhere, depending on where you were in Minneapolis area or in Minnesota, anywhere from 5 to 8 inches. So, and that should stay through Christmas. Gopher Girl should get her white Christmas that she always wants. All right. So have that. Let's get it threaded. And we'll try again with this. Down in there a little bit further. And hopefully that's all we need. Don't remember if it was this end or the other end, but one of them needs a washer, so we'll put it on. Let's put it on this end. So, do you have any plans for the summer, Brad? Are you doing anything special? Are you getting away from home? Our NMRA division doesn't do much during the summer either, but what they decided to do was still engage people. And so we actually had 3 picnics through the summer. I didn't attend them because, like you said, I'd rather be modeling. So let's see here. Let's see if we have a winner. I'm hoping it looked like I drilled this slightly off center, and that's going to suck if I did, but I'm hoping not. This certainly feels much tighter. Oh, that fits like a glove. I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. The other side is kind of loose too, so filling that with lots of styrene glue and styrene rod seems to have worked, at least from the standpoint of locking it in there. Yeah, let's see if we can get this one screwed in. I do have a piece of track, and I have the coupler height gauge, and we'll take a look how we did there. This side's a little bit loose, so I fear that the more I put it on and take it off of here, the more we're going to have an issue on this end too. But at least I know it could be filled in and redone. And I I think that one is probably going to have to be redone as well. That's nice. It's nice to get away from, just to get away from the usual is nice once in a while. So I recommend getting one of these if you don't have one for your layout. Get a flat piece of track, flat surface, and test your coupler heights. And this is the annoying part is you still have a lot of movement in them. So getting them straight. Okay. So that looks pretty good on that end. And we will. And looks pretty darn good on that end. Seems to move. Now this is super light, so for the evaluation, I won't have a load on it for the evaluation, but it certainly, my scale's in the other room, but it certainly doesn't meet NMRA standards. So that gives it some weight, and of course we knew I was going to do that because that was me doing that. So, and that those wheels have some give on them, but definitely need some weight on there. But at least that works. Like I said, I'll probably fill in the gap on this end too and re-drill that. But it's nice. These roll very nicely. This is pre-weathered flex track from Micro Engineering, and it rolls just fine on this track. So happy with that. Thank you. I appreciate that, Brad. So this was done with a dry brushing technique. So I'm not sure if you remember this too. I only had certain stains, and I was using Hunterline stain, and I had used this creosote black, and it was too dark. It was way too dark. So I took some burnt umber and some of that rotten white, and obviously in various levels did some dry brushing, and it really did turn out really nice. So you can see this like if we get close to it, you can see it's like something like this one here is almost all burnt umber, where you have some heavy white on these. You have some light white on that with the burnt umber. You have some here where it's predominantly the creosote black that I didn't do a lot of dry brushing on. So it had this nice variation, and I tried to make sure as I was gluing these down that I bunched a couple together to make it look really kind of used and abused. And so and that, that was another discussion I had and some help I got from the crew to get that wooden deck looking nice. So so one thing I will say, and I'm gonna preach, is when I say just jump in, and and I have this mantra everywhere I post, there's two things. One, it's the only way to decide whether you like something. whether you'll enjoy it, is to just jump in. It was the roadblock in my head that I had with the hobby when I wasn't jumping in, and I was getting really frustrated until I cut that bag of like ground foam open and let it dump out, and didn't worry that it didn't look like anything it was supposed to look like. And this car in its present form is actually my third attempt at this car. Because from the first one where I was on my own and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. The second one where I was working with an MMR who was mentoring me with it, but he was also retired, and he was working on his car certificate and working on 4 cars at a time, 4 hours a day. So he was well ahead of me. He had time to focus on it that I didn't have with work and everything. And so I got behind and I got frustrated again because it wasn't looking good. Things weren't measuring out. I can tell you things don't measure out exactly like they're supposed to on this one, but it's pretty close. And it took a third attempt, and sticking with it and saying, I jumped in. I know there are things I can do with it. I know I can get there. And I had done other models by then. I didn't do any Craftsman kits, and I finally jumped in when given the opportunity to have a really steep discount on and some instruction on it with a build along, which was like 4 episodes and something I could go back to and re-watch them and everything. So kind of everything was hitting right. And I follow directions relatively well. I'm not bad at that. And so if you follow directions relatively well, and they're written well enough and they make sense, you're going to get from one end to the other. I think if I build 10 of these, the 10th one's going to look pristine next to this one. But it was about jumping in. So I'm going to continue on and keep moving with this. I think I'm a little intimidated by the station part of it, and I have to get my head back into that, and I have to jump back into that one. So as I'm knocking things off, as I'm planning things, if you remember, I was working on the plan to have a tunnel into Penn Station in New York. I worked on that. So I was working on stuff. It was indirect. And I got to continue working on that, but maybe I can kind of chip away at the station and continue to have small wins with that. And I think we'll get somewhere. But with that, what I'm going to say to you is to have a fantastic weekend and a fantastic Christmas and Hanukkah week, as they've fallen on this at the same time. I do plan to be broadcasting next Friday. I don't see any why not, and hopefully I can say I actually got closer to done and fixed the things that I could fix with the time that I have. But I will see you then, and I appreciate everybody who jumped into the live stream and hung out with me. So everybody have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and have a good night.